So now we're looking at the Reformation. And understand that with the Reformation, it's going to start with Martin Luther. So it's like the Lutheran or the Protestant Reformation. Okay? And with Martin Luther, Luther was a Catholic monk. And he saw things that were happening in the church that he didn't agree with. He did not set out to start a new church. He did not set out to divide Christianity. He did not set out for the schism to take place, this division to take place. All right? What he wanted to do was change current practice within the church because he disagreed with it from a biblical perspective. Because since he was a monk, he had the ability to read the Bible. We talked about with the Renaissance, this push for humanism, this ability for human beings to think and to think.
Pat McMillan, if you're in the building, call 3539. Pat McMillan, call 3539.
Always when I'm on a roll. Okay? And so always this idea that human beings can figure things out. Well, so he's reading the Bible and he's interpreting things, and then he's looking at things that the capital C Church is doing, and he's saying, it doesn't seem to go together. In particular, we talked about during the Renaissance, how the Medici popes had bankrupted the Vatican, and from that they continued an old or expanded an old tradition of selling indulgences. Okay, and an indulgence is essentially, it's a golden ticket into heaven. All right, you give the church some money, and then they give you a piece of paper that says you're in. Okay, or you can even, what the Medici popes had done is they even, like Leo X and others, had even included indulgences that you could purchase for your dead relatives. And Luther is looking at this and saying, well, I don't agree with this. Okay? Luther also thought that the Bible should be written in vernacular, the commonly spoken language. And so you should be able to read the Bible for yourself. If you're German, it should be written in German, according to Luther. Okay? And so there was in total, a list of 95 things that Luther thought could be or should be changed with the church. Again, he did not seek to start a new church. He did not seek to create a schism. He just said there needs to be change within the Catholic Church. Okay? And that was obviously met with great resistance. All right? And so he's going to have a group of followers that are going to protect him, and there's going to be a lot of the followers. It's going to be based off of it's going to be for political reasons as much for faith reasons, okay? And because in where he's from in Wittenberg in Germany, they're going to look at it from the perspective of we can get ourselves out from the control of Rome, and we can possibly start our own country, our own land with our own church, so on and so forth. And so it was as much political reasons for the expansion of Protestantism as much for faith-based reasons. But looking specifically at Martin Luther, or just some of the differences between the Catholic and the Lutheran Church, we talked about the indulgence. We're looking at it from 1517 perspective, not a 2012 perspective. I want to make sure that that's perfectly clear. So from a 1517 perspective, differences that Luther highlighted. We talked about indulgences. We talked about vernacular. All right, but the main difference is that Luther believes that entry into heaven is based on faith alone. Okay. He's going to as he's reading the Bible. Okay, he's going to look at the passage, and the actual verse is slipping me right now, but where it says, "Nobody comes to the Father except through me." Okay, and looking in that passage, it's in John, and looking at that passage, he's saying that faith in Christ alone is how one gets into heaven. It is not based on good works, and that's what the Catholic Church at 1517 based their belief system off of. Okay? And so understand that what was at the core of Catholic belief was following through with the sacraments. Okay? We've talked in here before about the 7 sacraments of the Catholic Church, but the Lutheran Church doesn't have 7. Okay? The Lutheran Church, they have baptism and communion, and some maybe Lutheran churches consider marriage to be a sacrament as well. So 2. You go from 7 down to 2. So here's 2 things you have to do. You got to be baptized and you got to take communion. Okay? And so this gets into the whole set of other issues, because the idea of communion itself within the Lutheran Church is very different than the Catholic Church. Okay? The Catholic Church of 1517 believed in transubstantiation. For the most part, the Catholic Church today still believes. Okay? Believed in transubstantiation, that when you take communion, when you take the bread and you drink the wine, that it transubstantiates, it changes forms, it changes from bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ. Catholics believe, the Catholics of 1517 believed that it literally changed from bread and wine into the body and blood. Okay? Luther viewed it as symbolic. Do this in remembrance of me. Okay? And so he's saying this is a symbolic act. It is not transubstantiation. Transubstantiation does not take place. So it's another issue that he's running into. Okay? And so what is going to happen with all this is, as I mentioned, oftentimes along political lines, but just as there was differences between the northern and southern in terms of the Renaissance, northern and southern Europe in terms of the Renaissance, the Reformation is going to be drawn along similar lines. Okay, the further you were from Rome, the more likely you were that your country was going to have a Reformation, a Protestant Reformation. Okay, it's obviously going to hit England with Henry VIII, and we'll get into reasons for that during the 3rd trimester. All right, we'll talk about John Calvin and the Huguenots and the Presbyterians and the Anabaptists. We'll talk about these different churches, the genesis of these churches, the origins of these churches, and how they formed, why they formed. And we're going to get into the Catholic counter-reformation, because the Catholic Church isn't just going to sit there idly while half of their members walk out the door. Okay? So they're going to readdress, during the counter-reformation, some of the issues that Luther is talking about and say, no, 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 it is not justification through faith, but it is justification through works. You must be a good person to get into heaven. Okay? And so I understand that this section is going to be highly theological, all right? But just stay with me throughout. Feel free to ask questions throughout. And just know that it is not from a perspective of, or a standpoint of proselytization, all right? That whatever you believe now, you'll believe at the end of this. This is not dealing with conversion here, all right? So I want to make sure that that's perfectly clear. It is simply understanding the Church of 1517 and the transitions that had taken place during the Protestant Reformation, initially under Luther and then under Calvin, Henry VIII, so on and so forth. Okay? And understanding the origins of that within the Catholic Church and what they really were moving out against.